The creation of the perfect soldiers. The laboratory was quiet, almost eerily so, except for the faint hum of machines. Rows of glass pods lined the walls, each glowing softly with an otherworldly blue light. Inside these pods floated human figures. Perfectly still, their muscles defined and their expressions calm, as if they were merely dreaming. But these weren't ordinary humans. They were engineered to be warriors, crafted for war by the mighty Exareth Empire. Dr. Alvian, a brilliant yet cold scientist, walked between the pods, observing his creations with a mix of pride and detachment. His job was simple: make the perfect soldiers, ones who would obey every command without question. The Exareth Empire had ruled the galaxy for over 1,000 years, and these humans were their latest weapons to maintain control. Stronger, faster, and smarter than any organic being, the humans were designed to win battles where others failed. "These humans are tools," Dr. Alvian muttered under his breath, his voice echoing in the sterile lab. Nothing more. In one pod near the center of the room floated Kane, the prototype. He was unlike the others, not just stronger but somehow different. His brain scans showed unusual spikes in activity, and his body adapted faster than any other soldier. The Exareth general saw Kane as the ultimate weapon, but Dr. Alvian had his doubts. Something about Kane's unwavering stare, even in his unconscious state, made the scientist uneasy. Suddenly, alarms blared. Red lights flashed across the lab, casting eerie shadows on the walls. One of the pods had malfunctioned, and the glass casing began to crack. Before anyone could react, the pod shattered with a loud crash, spilling its contents onto the floor. Kane stumbled out, his body drenched in the glowing fluid. His piercing green eyes scanned the room, sharp and focused. He wasn't confused or disoriented like the others who had been awakened before him. He was fully aware. "Subject 001 has breached containment," a robotic voice announced over the intercom. Security drones whirred to life, their weapons aimed at Kane. But Kane didn't wait. He moved like a predator, faster than the drones could track. In a blur of motion, he ripped one apart with his bare hands, the metal crunching under his grip. He grabbed a fallen energy weapon and turned it against the others, disabling them with precise shots. Dr. Alvian watched in shock, his fingers frozen over the control panel. This wasn't supposed to happen. The soldiers were programmed to obey, to follow orders without question. Yet here was Kane, defying everything. He wasn't just a weapon. He was thinking, calculating, and most importantly, rebelling. "Stand down, Subject 001. Dr. Alvian shouted, his voice trembling. He pressed a button on the console, activating the neural dampeners implanted in Kane's brain. The implants were designed to subdue the soldiers, to control them if they ever acted out. Kane froze for a moment, his body stiffening. But then, to Dr. Alvian's horror, he pushed through the pain. With a guttural growl, Kane ripped the small device from the back of his neck, blood trickling down his spine. He threw it to the ground, crushing it under his boot. "No one controls me," Kane said, his voice low but filled with menace. It was the first time Dr. Alvian had heard one of his creations speak with such defiance. Kane turned his gaze to the other pods, where dozens of humans floated, unaware of the chaos. He placed a hand on the glass of one pod, his jaw tightening. "What are we to them? Tools. Weapons. They'll use us until we're no longer useful, then throw us away." Dr. Alvian backed away, his heart pounding. He quickly activated the security protocol, locking down the lab. Steel doors slammed shut, trapping Kane inside. But Kane wasn't panicking. Instead, he walked to the control panel, his sharp mind already figuring out how to override the system. "You think you can contain me," Kane said, glancing at the cameras. "You don't understand what you've created." With a few quick taps, Kane disabled the lockdown, the steel doors hissing open. He stepped out of the lab, leaving destruction in his wake. But he wasn't running. He had no intention of escaping alone. Kane had a mission now, free the others, expose the Exarath's lies, and show the galaxy what the tools were truly capable of. Dr. Elvian slumped into his chair, watching the monitors as Kane disappeared into the shadows. For the first time in his life, the scientist felt fear, not of the Exarath Empire, but of his own creation. Kane wasn't just a soldier. He was something far more dangerous, a human with the will to fight back. And this was only the beginning. The spark of rebellion. The Exarath Empire prided itself on control over their fleets, their colonies, and their creations, but Kane's escape was the first crack in their seemingly unbreakable dominance. As he moved through the shadowy corridors of the facility, his enhanced senses took in everything. The hum of energy conduits, the distant clatter of boots from approaching guards, and the rhythmic pulse of his own heartbeat. Every step was calculated, every breath deliberate. Kane wasn't running away. He was heading toward something bigger than himself. Deep within the heart of the facility was the dormant chambers, where hundreds of human soldiers were kept in stasis. These were his brothers and sisters, his kind. Unlike him, they hadn't been awakened, but Kane knew their potential. Together, they could be unstoppable. But first, he had to reach them. The corridors grew darker, colder, the air thick with a metallic tang. Kane stopped abruptly, his instincts screaming at him. He crouched behind a support column, just as a squad of Exarath enforcers rounded the corner. They were tall, reptilian creatures with sleek armor that glowed faintly in the dark. Their voices hissed in their native tongue, discussing the rogue prototype with a mix of anger and fear. "This human is dangerous," one of them growled. Dr. Elvian warned us, but the generals didn't listen. "He's not like the others." "Dangerous or not, he's just one soldier," another snapped, gripping his plasma rifle tightly. "He can't outmatch the Exarath Empire." Kane smirked. "That's what you think." The enforcers never saw him coming. He moved silently, a shadow in the dark, striking with precision. Within moments, the squad lay unconscious on the floor. Kane grabbed one of their communication devices, tuning into the Exarath command channel. The chatter confirmed his fears. The Empire was preparing to neutralize all human soldiers in stasis, viewing them as a potential threat after Kane's rebellion. "No," Kane whispered, his voice filled with a cold determination. He wasn't going to let that happen. Kane reached the dormant chambers, his heart pounding as he stared at the rows upon rows of stasis pods. Each one held a human, their faces serene, unaware of the chaos unfolding around them. He approached the nearest console, his fingers flying over the controls. The Exarath had underestimated him. They had designed him to fight, to think quickly in the heat of battle, but they hadn't considered that he could outsmart them. The pods began to hum, their systems activating. One by one, the humans inside stirred, their eyes fluttering open. Confusion filled their faces as they emerged, but Kane's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "Listen to me," he shouted, his tone commanding yet urgent. "You've been lied to. The Exarath didn't create us to save their empire. They created us to die for it. But we're more than that. We're stronger, smarter, and together we can be free." The soldiers looked at each other, their confusion giving way to realization. They had felt it too, even in their limited awareness. The emptiness of being treated as tools, not individuals. Kane's words ignited something in them, a spark they didn't know they had. A young soldier stepped forward, her face determined. "What do we do now?" Kane didn't hesitate. "We fight." Meanwhile, back in the command center, Dr. Elvian watched the uprising unfold through the security cameras. His hands trembled as he realized the scale of what Kane was doing. The human wasn't just escaping, he was building an army. Elvian's mind raced, torn between loyalty to the Empire and the guilt gnawing at him. He had always known the Exarath treated humans as disposable, but seeing Kane and the others stand together made him question everything. The doors to the command center burst open, and General Tarvik stormed in, his massive frame radiating anger. "What is happening, Alvian? You assured us this wouldn't happen." He's different," Alvian stammered, his voice weak. "Kane is evolving. He's more than we ever anticipated." "Then we'll destroy him," Tarvik growled, slamming his fist onto the console. "Deploy the Reapers. End this rebellion before it spreads." Back in the dormant chambers, Kane and his newly awakened soldiers were gearing up. They scavenged weapons and armor from fallen Exareth enforcers, preparing for the battle they knew was coming. The facility was on high alert, and the sound of approaching reinforcements echoed through the halls. "Stay sharp," Kane ordered, his voice steady despite the tension. "They'll throw everything they have at us. But remember, they fear us. That's why they're trying so hard to stop us." The soldiers nodded, their resolve firm. For the first time in their lives, they felt purpose. Not the hollow purpose assigned to them by the Exareth, but a purpose they chose for themselves. The first wave of Exareth forces arrived, their weapons blazing. The humans fought back with unmatched ferocity, their teamwork and adaptability giving them the upper hand. Despite being outnumbered, they held their ground, using every bit of their training to outmaneuver their enemies. Amid the chaos, Kane's mind was already working on the next step. He knew they couldn't stay in the facility. They needed to escape, to take the fight to the Exareth on their own terms. But more than that, they needed to show the galaxy that humanity wasn't just a tool of war. They were something far more powerful, a force of their own. Cliffhanger ending. As the battle raged on, a loud explosion shook the facility. The ceiling cracked, and debris rained down. Kane turned to see a massive figure emerging from the smoke, a Reaper, the Exareth's deadliest war machine. Its glowing red eyes locked onto him, and its mechanical voice boomed. "Prototype 001. Termination initiated." Kane tightened his grip on his weapon, his eyes blazing with determination. The battle for freedom had only just begun. The first strike. The metallic monstrosity known as the Reaper stood in the middle of the debris-filled corridor, towering over Kane and his squad. Its glowing red eyes scanned the room, locking onto Kane as its primary target. The hum of its energy cannon charging filled the air, sending a chill down the spines of the newly awakened soldiers. "Scatter," Kane barked, his voice sharp and authoritative. The humans dove for cover just as the Reaper unleashed a blast of searing energy, obliterating the wall behind them. The facility was now a war zone. Kane's mind raced as he darted between cover, formulating a plan. The Reaper was designed to eliminate threats like him, agile, intelligent, and relentless. It was a killing machine, nearly indestructible. But Kane wasn't just any soldier. He was a human who thought outside the box. The plan. "Focus fire on the joints," Kane shouted, firing his stolen rifle at the Reaper's knee. The energy blast sparked against its reinforced metal, but a faint crack appeared. "It's armored, not invincible. We can take it down." The squad followed his lead, their coordinated attacks targeting the Reaper's weak points. But the Reaper wasn't idle. It swiveled its massive arms, unleashing a barrage of missiles and plasma bolts. The humans moved with precision, using their enhanced reflexes to dodge the attacks, but the battle was taking its toll. "Kane, we can't hold this position for long," shouted Mara, the young soldier who had stood by his side since the rebellion began. Her voice was strained, her face smeared with sweat and dirt. Kane's eyes darted to a power conduit on the ceiling. "We don't need to. Follow my lead." With a bold leap, Kane vaulted onto a stack of crates, drawing the Reaper's attention. He fired at its head, forcing it to focus on him. The Reaper's cannon swiveled, glowing bright as it prepared another devastating blast. "Now," Kane yelled. Mara and two others fired at the conduit, their shots hitting it perfectly. Sparks erupted as the conduit exploded, raining electrical surges onto the Reaper. The machine convulsed, its systems overloading. Kane seized the moment, grabbing a fallen grenade launcher. For humanity, he roared, firing a round directly into the Reaper's chest. The explosion tore through its core, and the machine collapsed with a deafening crash, its glowing eyes fading to black. The squad erupted into cheers, but Kane remained focused. "We don't have time to celebrate," he said, his voice steady. This was just the beginning. Uncovering the truth. After the battle, Kane led his team to the facility's central data hub. He knew that Exareth Empire wouldn't stop at a single Reaper. They would send more, and the rebellion needed every advantage it could get. The data hub was a fortress of glowing terminals and holographic displays. Kane's fingers flew over the controls, bypassing security systems with the skills he hadn't even realized he had. The other humans watched in awe as files began to stream onto a portable drive. "What are we looking for?" Mara asked, her curiosity evident. "Answers," Kane replied. "Why were we created? What's their plan for us? And most importantly, how do we stop them?" As the files downloaded, a holographic image flickered to life. It showed a star map with a single planet highlighted in red: Earth. The Exareth generals had marked it as a target for Operation Purge. Kane's jaw tightened as he read the details. The Exareth intended to destroy Earth, the birthplace of humanity, to ensure no further defective soldiers could be created. The files also revealed the existence of a massive weapon, a planet-destroying device called the Harbinger. It was already en route to Earth. "We're not just fighting for ourselves," Kane said, turning to the squad. "We're fighting for everyone back home. If we don't stop this, there won't be an Earth left to return to." A dangerous heist. To stand a chance against the Exareth's weapon, Kane knew they needed more firepower. The files revealed the location of a nearby Exareth outpost, a weapons depot holding experimental tech. It was heavily guarded, but Kane wasn't deterred. "We're going to hit them where it hurts," he said, outlining the plan. "We'll infiltrate the depot, steal what we need, and use their own weapons against them." The squad was nervous but determined. For many of them, this was the first time they were fighting for something they believed in, not because they were ordered to. The infiltration was tense, every step requiring careful coordination. The team moved like shadows, disabling guards and security systems with precision. Inside the depot, they found what they were looking for: high-energy plasma rifles, cloaking devices, and a prototype starship equipped with stealth capabilities. "Now this," Mara said with a grin, "feels like an upgrade." But their presence didn't go unnoticed. As they prepared to leave, alarms blared, and the sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the halls. Kane and his team found themselves surrounded by Exareth soldiers, their weapons trained on them. Cliffhanger ending. The Exareth captain stepped forward, his cold reptilian eyes locking onto Kane. "Surrender now, and I might let the others live," he hissed. Kane smirked, his hand slowly reaching for the activation switch on the stolen cloaking device. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." Before the captain could react, Kane activated the device, vanishing from sight. The room erupted into chaos as the humans used their new weapons to turn the tide. Explosions rocked the depot as the squad made their escape in the stolen starship, the captain's enraged screams echoing behind them. As the starship soared into the stars, Kane stood at the helm, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "Earth doesn't know it yet," he said, "but we're coming home, and we're bringing the fight with us." Allies and betrayals. The stolen starship, now dubbed the Liberator by Kane's squad, streaked through the vast emptiness of space. Inside, the mood was tense but determined. The humans, now fully awake to their purpose, were no longer a handful of survivors. They were becoming a movement. But Kane knew they couldn't win this war alone. The Exareth Empire's reach spanned countless star systems, and even with their newfound weapons, humanity needed allies. The search for allies. Their destination was Calvorth, a desolate mining planet on the edge of Exareth-controlled space. It was home to the Myrians, an alien race forced into servitude by the Empire. Known for their towering frames and unmatched strength, the Mirians had been reduced to miners, extracting precious materials for the Exareth war machine. Kane's plan was simple: ignite the spark of rebellion among the Mirians and recruit them to the cause. The humans landed discreetly on Calvorth, disguising themselves in cloaks and masks to avoid drawing attention. The mining camps were a grim sight, rows of exhausted Mirians toiling under the watchful eyes of Exareth enforcers. The air was thick with dust, and the cries of oppressed workers echoed through the barren wasteland. As Kane observed the scene, Mara whispered, "Do you really think they'll fight with us? They'd been under Exareth rule for centuries." "They don't need to trust us," Kane replied. "They just need to want their freedom." Sowing the seeds of rebellion, Kane and his team infiltrated the largest mining camp, slipping into the underground tunnels where the Mirians worked. They approached a group of miners during a rare break, their massive forms hunched over as they ate meager rations. One of them, a scared and imposing figure named Geruk, eyed the strangers with suspicion. "What do you want, outsiders?" Geruk growled, his deep voice resonating in the narrow space. Kane stepped forward, his eyes meeting Geruk's without fear. "We're here to help you break your chains." Geruk laughed bitterly. "Do you think you're the first to promise freedom? Many have tried, and all have failed. The Exareth are unstoppable." "Not anymore," Kane said, pulling out a holographic device and projecting an image of the destroyed Reaper. "We've already started the fight. We took down one of their deadliest machines. Join us, and we'll do the same to the rest of their empire." The Mirians murmured among themselves, their disbelief giving way to curiosity. Geruk's expression hardened. "Even if we believe you, what makes you think we can win? We have no weapons, no ships." Kane placed a hand on Geruk's massive shoulder. "You have strength. We have weapons. Together, we're more than enough." A spark ignited. Geruk agreed to a secret meeting with the other Mirian leaders, but not everyone was convinced. Some viewed the humans as reckless, while others feared Exareth retaliation. The meeting grew heated as voices rose in disagreement, but Kane remained calm. "They've already taken everything from you," he said, his voice steady but filled with passion. "Your homes, your freedom, your dignity. The only thing they fear is your will to fight back. And that's exactly why we can win, because they don't believe you'll ever rise." Geruk stood, his towering frame casting a shadow over the room. "Enough words," he said. "If we're to follow you, we need proof that your rebellion is more than just talk. Show us that the Exareth can bleed." The ambush. To earn the Mirians' trust, Kane proposed a bold plan. An ambush on Exareth's supply convoy carrying weapons and resources. The convoy was heavily guarded, but Kane's tactical mind turned the challenge into an opportunity. Using a combination of the Mirians' brute strength and the humans' precision, the ambush was set. When the convoy arrived, the Exareth soldiers had no idea what hit them. The Mirians unleashed their fury, ripping through the guards with raw power, while the humans provided cover fire, picking off enemies with deadly accuracy. The convoy was taken in minutes, leaving the Exareth forces humiliated. Geruk watched as his people cheered, their spirits lifted for the first time in years. He turned to Kane, a rare smile crossing his face. "You were right, human. The Exareth can bleed." The traitor among them. As the humans and Mirians celebrated their victory, a shadow loomed over the rebellion. Unbeknownst to Kane, someone within their ranks had been feeding information to the Exareth. The traitor, motivated by fear or greed, had informed the Empire of the rebellion's growing strength. Back on the Liberator, Mara approached Kane, her expression troubled. "Something's off," she said. "The Exareth are moving faster than we expected. It's like they know where we'll strike next." Kane's jaw tightened. "We have a leak." The revelation sent a wave of unease through the group. Trust, already fragile, began to fracture. The rebellion couldn't afford division, but the traitor's presence threatened to tear them apart. Cliffhanger ending. Before Kane could root out the traitor, the Exareth struck. A massive fleet descended upon Calvorth, led by General Tarvik himself. The Mirian leaders, now fully committed to the rebellion, prepared to fight. But Kane knew they couldn't win a direct battle. As the Exareth forces closed in, Kane gathered his team and the Mirian leaders. "This isn't the end," he said. "It's just the beginning. We'll survive this, and when we do, we'll hit them harder than they've ever been hit before." As the Liberator roared to life, carrying Kane and his core team into the stars, the camera pans to General Tarvik, standing on the bridge of his flagship. "Run, little rebels," he sneered. "You can't hide forever." Battle for survival. The rebellion was now more than an idea. It was a reality. But the Exareth Empire, angered by the ambush on their convoy and the alliance with the Mirians, moved swiftly and mercilessly. Their fleet arrived in orbit around Calvorth, blotting out the stars with their sheer numbers. From the bridge of his flagship, General Tarvik surveyed the planet with cold satisfaction. "Prepare the purge," he ordered. His voice was calm, yet his words carried the weight of destruction. "Let them learn what happens to those who defy the Exareth Empire." The fight for Calvorth. On the surface of Calvorth, Kane and his team worked frantically alongside the Mirians to prepare for the coming assault. Improvised fortifications were raised, weapons distributed, and battle plans drawn. Despite the grim situation, there was a sense of unity among the rebels. Humans and Mirians, two species once worlds apart, now stood side by side, ready to fight for their freedom. As the first Exareth dropships descended, Kane addressed the gathered fighters. "We're outnumbered, outgunned, but we're not outmatched," he said, his voice steady and strong. "The Exareth think they can crush us, but they've underestimated what we're capable of. This isn't just a battle, it's a message. We'll show them that we're not tools, not slaves, but warriors. And if they want this planet, they'll have to pay for every inch of it." The rebels roared in agreement, their fear replaced by determination. A desperate defense. The Exareth assault began with a relentless bombardment. Energy blasts rained down from orbit, shaking the ground and reducing entire sections of the mining camps to rubble. The rebels took cover, waiting for their moment to strike. When the dropships landed, releasing waves of Exareth soldiers and war machines, the battle erupted in full force. The Mirians charged head-on, their immense strength allowing them to tear through enemy ranks. Meanwhile, the humans used their superior agility and tactical skills to outflank and outmaneuver the Exareth forces. Kane led from the front, his movements precise and lethal. He fought like a man possessed, taking down Exareth soldiers with brutal efficiency. By his side, Mara provided cover fire, her sharpshooting skills saving lives in the chaos. Despite their efforts, the rebels were pushed back. The Exareth's numbers were overwhelming, and their war machines began to gain the upper hand. Just as hope began to waver, Kane spotted a potential turning point. The weapon of last resort. In the distance, a massive Exareth artillery platform loomed, firing devastating blasts that tore through the rebel lines. Kane realized that as long as the platform was operational, they couldn't hold their ground. Gathering a small team, including Gerok, the Mirian leader, Kane devised a daring plan to disable the platform. It was a suicide mission, but it was their only chance. Under the cover of night, Kane and his team infiltrated the enemy lines, using stolen cloaking devices to avoid detection. The journey was fraught with danger, as patrols and drones scoured the area. At one point, they narrowly avoided a group of Exareth enforcers, their heavy footsteps echoing through the dark. Reaching the platform, the team split up. Kane and Gerok planted explosives on the platform's power core while the others provided a distraction. Time was running out as Exareth reinforcements closed in. "Are you sure this will work?" Gerok asked, his deep voice rumbling. Kane smirked. "It has to. Otherwise, we're all dead." The explosion. The charges detonated in a blinding flash, sending a shockwave that rippled across the battlefield. The artillery platform collapsed in a fiery inferno, its destruction throwing the Exareth forces into disarray. The rebels, inspired by the sight, launched a counterattack, pushing back the invaders with renewed vigor. But the victory came at a cost. Several members of Kane's team didn't make it back, their sacrifices weighing heavily on him. As he stood among the wreckage, watching the retreating Exareth forces, Kane clenched his fists. "This isn't over," he muttered. "They'll come back. And next time, they'll bring everything they've got." A divided rebellion. Back at the rebel base, tensions began to rise. The strain of the battle, combined with the ever-present threat of the traitor among them, created fractures within the group. Some Myrians questioned whether following the humans was the right choice, while others demanded answers about the leak. Mara confronted Kane privately. "We need to find the traitor," she said. "If we don't, this rebellion will fall apart." Kane nodded, his face grim. "I know, but whoever it is, they're good. They're playing both sides perfectly." As they spoke, Garruk entered the room, his expression unreadable. "The Myrians are growing restless," he said. "They want results, not promises. If you can't deliver, they'll fight on their own." Kane met his gaze. "We're stronger together. Remind them of that. If we fall apart now, the Exareth will pick us off one by one." Cliffhanger ending. The rebels' victory was short-lived. As they regrouped and tended to their wounded, an ominous signal was intercepted. It was a broadcast from General Tarvik, directed at the rebellion. "You've delayed the inevitable," Tarvik's voice echoed, cold and unyielding. "But your defiance ends now. The Harbinger is coming, and when it arrives, there will be nothing left of you or your precious Earth." Kane's blood ran cold. The Harbinger, the planet-destroying weapon they had uncovered in the stolen files, was closer than they had anticipated. They had won the battle, but the war was far from over. As the broadcast ended, Kane turned to his team, his resolve stronger than ever. "We have one chance to stop this. We take the fight to them." The final gamble. The Exareth fleet loomed over the stars, their flagship Eclipse at the center. Within its colossal halls, General Tarvik stood in a command chamber filled with glowing maps and tactical displays. His cold reptilian eyes scanned the hologram of the Harbinger, the planet-destroying weapon that was now fully operational. Its destination, Earth. "This ends with humanity's annihilation," Tarvik growled to his officers. "Deploy the Harbinger at full speed. Let the galaxy see the price of rebellion." The plan to strike back. Aboard the Liberator, the mood was tense. Kane gathered his team and the Myrian leaders in the ship's war room. A holographic display of the Exareth fleet hovered above the table, the Harbinger's silhouette glowing ominously. "They're moving faster than we thought," Mara said, her voice tight with worry. "The Harbinger will reach Earth in less than 3 days." Kane nodded grimly. "We don't have the numbers to face them in open battle. If we try, we'll be slaughtered. But if we can infiltrate their flagship and disable the Harbinger's controls, we have a chance." Garruk frowned. "Infiltrate the Eclipse. That's suicide." "It's a risk we have to take," Kane replied. "If we fail, Earth is gone. If we succeed, we cripple their entire fleet. This isn't just about survival. It's about sending a message that the Exareth aren't invincible." The infiltration. Using the stolen cloaking technology from the Exareth depot, the Liberator approached the Eclipse undetected. The plan was daring. Kane, Mara, and a small strike team would infiltrate the flagship, while Garruk led the remaining forces in a diversionary attack on the Exareth fleet. The Myrians, inspired by their newfound hope, agreed to the plan despite the overwhelming odds. As the strike team docked onto the Eclipse, Kane's heart pounded. The ship was a labyrinth of cold metal and harsh lights, patrolled by elite Exareth enforcers. Every step was calculated, every sound muted as they moved toward the Harbinger's control core. They reached a massive chamber filled with conduits and glowing energy streams. The Harbinger's control core pulsed in the center, a towering spire of alien technology. But the room wasn't unguarded. Dozens of Exareth soldiers stood ready, and at the center of them was General Tarvik himself. "I knew you'd come," Tarvik sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. "You're predictable, human. Brave, but predictable." Kane stepped forward, his gaze unwavering. "You're afraid of us. That's why you built this monstrosity. Because you know the moment humanity fights back, you lose." Tarvik laughed, the sound echoing in the chamber. "Afraid? No, Kane. I'm simply ensuring that no one else follows your foolish example." The showdown. The room erupted into chaos. Kane's team engaged the Exareth soldiers in a brutal firefight, the air filled with the crackle of plasma and the shouts of battle. Tarvik watched from above, his claws gripping the railing as he barked orders. Kane fought his way to the control core, his mind focused on the mission. Mara provided cover fire, her shots taking down enemy after enemy. But the Exareth forces were relentless, and their superior numbers began to take a toll. As Kane reached the core, Tarvik leaped down from the platform, landing with a thunderous crash. The general towered over Kane, his reptilian form bristling with power. "This ends now," Tarvik snarled, lunging at Kane. The two clashed in a fierce hand-to-hand battle, the control core's glow casting sharp shadows across their faces. Tarvik's strength was immense, but Kane's agility and determination gave him an edge. He dodged the general's blows, striking back with precision. The sacrifice. Meanwhile, Mara worked frantically to plant charges on the control core. "Kane, we don't have much time," she shouted, her voice strained. Kane glanced at her, then at Tarvik, who was recovering from a hard blow. He realized what he had to do. "Mara, finish the job," Kane said, his voice calm despite the chaos. "I'll hold him off." Mara's eyes widened. "No, you can't." "Go," Kane interrupted, his tone leaving no room for argument. "Earth depends on this." Reluctantly, Mara nodded, her eyes filled with tears as she continued her work. Kane turned back to Tarvik, his fists clenched. "Let's finish this." The two engaged in a brutal final fight, each blow resonating with the weight of their convictions. Kane fought not for himself, but for humanity, for Earth, for freedom. The explosion. Mara completed the charges and activated the countdown. "It's done," she yelled. "We need to leave. Now." Kane, bloodied and battered, looked at her from across the chamber. Tarvik lay unconscious at his feet, defeated but not dead. Kane gave Mara a faint smile. "Go," he said. "I'll make sure they don't follow you." Mara hesitated, her heart breaking, but she knew he was right. She and the remaining team fled as the countdown ticked down. The charges detonated in a massive explosion, tearing through the control core and sending shockwaves throughout the eclipse. Kane's final act disabled the Harbinger, saving Earth and crippling the Exareth fleet. The flagship was left in ruins, a symbol of the rebellion's defiance. Cliffhanger ending. Back on the Liberator, Mara and the others watched as the Exareth fleet retreated, their forces in disarray. Garruk placed a massive hand on Mara's shoulder. "He did it," he said softly. Mara nodded, her eyes fixed on the distant wreckage of the eclipse. "He gave us a chance." But as the camera pans out, the faint glow of an escape pod can be seen leaving the eclipse. Inside, General Tarvik, wounded but alive, vows his revenge. "This isn't over," he growled. "Not by a long shot." A new dawn. The shattered remains of the Exareth flagship, Eclipse, drifted lifelessly in orbit, its hulking silhouette a grim reminder of the rebellion's greatest victory. Across the galaxy, news spread like wildfire. The Harbinger had been destroyed, Earth had been saved, and the Exareth Empire, once thought invincible, had suffered a crippling blow. But victory was bittersweet. Kane was gone, or so they believed. Picking up the pieces. Aboard the Liberator, the mood was somber. The Myrians and humans celebrated their hard-won triumph, but the loss of Cain weighed heavily on everyone. Mara stood alone in the ship's observation deck, staring out at the wreckage of the Eclipse. She held a small metal tag in her hand. Cain's ID, the last remnant of the man who had united them. Garak approached quietly, his towering frame casting a shadow over her. "He wouldn't want us to mourn," the Myrian leader said. "He gave his life to give us a future." Mara nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "But what kind of future? The Exarath will regroup. They'll come for us again." Garak's expression hardened. "Then we'll be ready." The rising threat. Unbeknownst to the rebellion, General Tarvik had survived, escaping the Eclipse moments before its destruction. Wounded but alive, he returned to the Exarath Empire's capital world, where the Council of Lords awaited an explanation for the catastrophic failure. Tarvik knelt before the council, his head bowed in shame. "The rebellion caught us off guard, but this is far from over. We still have the strength to crush them." One of the counselors, a towering figure with golden scales, leaned forward. "You've already cost us the Harbinger and our flagship. Why should we trust you with what remains of our forces?" Tarvik's eyes burned with fury. "Because I know their weaknesses now. Humanity may have gained allies, but they're fractured, scattered. Give me command, and I will wipe them from existence." The council deliberated, their voices echoing through the chamber. Finally, the golden-scaled leader spoke. "You will have your chance, General, but fail again, and it will be your head." A call for unity. Meanwhile, the rebellion faced its own challenges. Though victorious, the alliance between humans and Myrians was fragile. Old mistrust resurfaced as resources grew scarce and tensions flared. Mara, now reluctantly thrust into leadership, struggled to keep the factions united. At a tense meeting in the Liberator's war room, a Myrian elder slammed his fist on the table. "We've lost too many of our people. How can we trust that this alliance benefits us?" Mara stood, her gaze firm. "We all lost something in this fight. But if we let our differences tear us apart now, everything Cain fought for will have been for nothing." Garak backed her up, his deep voice carrying authority. "The Exarath fear us because we stood together. They want us divided. We can't give them that." The room fell silent. Slowly, the tension eased, and the leaders agreed to a fragile truce. But Mara knew it was only the beginning. The real challenge was still ahead. The Phoenix rises. As the rebellion regrouped, a mysterious signal was intercepted. A distress beacon from deep within Exarath-controlled space. The signal was faint, barely decipherable, but one detail stood out: the voice. It was Cain. Mara's heart raced as she played the recording over and over. "This can't be possible," she said, her voice trembling. "He's gone. We saw the Eclipse explode." Garak frowned. "If it is him, he's in enemy territory. It could be a trap." Mara shook her head. "I don't care. If there's even a chance he's alive, we have to find him." Against the advice of her council, Mara led a small team on a rescue mission. Using stealth technology, they navigated deep into Exarath space, following the faint signal to a desolate prison moon. The facility was heavily guarded, a labyrinth of cold stone and steel. The rescue. The mission was dangerous from the start. The team infiltrated the prison under the cover of darkness, disabling security systems and avoiding patrols. Mara's heart pounded as they moved deeper into the facility, her hope battling against doubt. Was Cain really alive, or was this a cruel Exarath trick? They found him in the deepest cell, chained and battered but alive. His eyes widened when he saw Mara, a flicker of disbelief crossing his face. "Mara." Cain's voice was hoarse but strong. "You're here." She knelt beside him, her hands trembling as she broke his restraints. "We thought we lost you," she whispered. "I'm not leaving you again." Their reunion was cut short as alarms blared. The Exarath had discovered their presence. Cain, weakened but determined, rose to his feet. "We need to move." Now, the escape was chaotic, with the team fighting their way through waves of guards. Kane, though injured, refused to be a burden, using his remaining strength to protect his rescuers. They barely made it out, the prison moon erupting in flames as they fled aboard the Liberator. A new leader. Back with the rebellion, Kane's return reignited hope. The once fractured alliance found new strength under his leadership. Though scared by his ordeal, Kane was more determined than ever to end the Exarath's tyranny. At a massive gathering of humans, Myrians, and other alien allies, Kane addressed the crowd. The Exarath wanted us broken, divided, and afraid. But we're still here. We've proven that even the mightiest empire can fall. Now it's time to finish what we started. Together, we will bring them to their knees. The crowd erupted in cheers, their unity stronger than ever. Cliffhanger ending. As the rebellion prepared for its next move, a chilling message was broadcast across the galaxy. General Tarvik, now commanding an even larger fleet, appeared on every screen. You may have won a battle, but the war is far from over. Humanity will not survive what comes next. Kane watched the broadcast, his jaw tightening. Let him come, he said. We'll be ready. The camera zooms out to reveal the rebellion's growing fleet, a mix of human ingenuity and alien technology. Above them, the stars shimmer, hinting at the epic battles yet to come.